I'll bring the meeting to order first at 7:05. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place due to the outbreak of the coronavirus, this meeting of the Town of Berlin Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The Town of Berlin will use best efforts to post an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's webpage, on the town's YouTube channel. Approved minutes will be posted to My Town Government. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to attend the virtual meeting may attend by a Zoom webinar platform in one of two ways, with both audio and video access, or by telephone and audio only. I don't think I need to go into the rest of this. So I have called the meeting to order. First, I'm assuming we have no announcements. No announcements?
No.
Did you mute her?
I muted myself.
Oh.
Well, no announcements.
Okay. And do we have approval of minutes? March 2nd, March 23rd? No.
I don't think those are ready yet.
Okay.
Oh, I'd say March 2nd is in there, but I don't know if you want town council to review them.
March 2nd? Okay.
They just got put in this afternoon.
Oh, all right. I haven't had a chance to read them yet, but did we want Brian Riley to take a look at them?
I suggest holding on any action on those until your next meeting. We'll take a look.
Okay. All right. Do we have any correspondence?
No.
It's going to be a quick meeting.
Maybe.
And there is general public comment. I don't believe we have any public right now, unless Lisa, you have.
Well, there is public, but there's two. Yeah, there's panelists and attendees, so there are people out there. I don't know if
anyone in the
Oh, all
public
right. I'm sorry.
to show that they want to speak.
All right. Yes, they'd have to identify themselves.
I don't
So,
see any hand. Oh, there goes a hand.
Yes.
Janet picked her hand up, Chris.
okay. Is she unmuted?
Looks like Janet and Scott put their hand up.
Oh, I see him coming up.
All right.
Janet is muted right now. Not anymore.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure she had the right setting because all we could get was all we could see was Chris. And then when Margaret spoke, Margaret came up, but I had seen Lisa quickly. So I knew that there was something not quite right. I see Scott Hawkins is on now too. So I think you fixed whatever the problem was.
Yeah, you're not going to see all of us anymore because you're over on the attendees rather than the panelists, I think.
Nope, I can see everybody just like every
Yeah,
other
because-
meeting I've been at from now on.
Yeah, for now, but when it goes back to the other, we're in a webinar now. So we would be putting on the webinar and you would be attendees. So you wouldn't actually see all of the panelists at the same time. You would just see the person who's speaking.
Okay.
Okay. But I couldn't even see like participants. You can't see that
No,
either?
you wouldn't.
All right, this is the first time I've been on this one. I've been doing tons of Zoom, so I apologize. I didn't know if I had the right setup. That's all. Thank you, Lisa.
How the town meetings
Okay.
will be held going forward. They will be webinar format and not with everyone.
Okay.
on the screen.
Gotcha.
Scott, do you have a question?
No.
You're just testing us?
Yep.
Hey,
Okay.
Scott.
All right, well, if there's no more general public comment, we'll move on. We have a finalist interview for the 1870 Town Hall, the manager. This is Lisa Betcher-Smith. And I guess the board and myself, we do have questions for Lisa. Should we move forward, Margaret?
I think you should.
All right.
And I'm going to mute myself again.
Oh, okay. All right. So Lisa and Peg, do you want to take turns? Do you want to read all three of yours, Peg, and then we move on? Or,
Sure, I'll do all three, and then we'll go to Lisa all three, and then you all three.
okay.
All right. So Lisa, hi, how are you? I'm Peg. Nice to meet you. First question.
Sure.
Your resume indicated that you have quite a bit of experience with children. How will you plan to use that knowledge and experience to set up programs that may be geared towards more adult and/or family?
I have some ideas, especially following, this coronavirus thing. Hopefully we can get back on track to our lives again. And I think it would be amazing to do some game nights with adults, maybe in collaboration with the community center and the church. Maybe one group does watching the children so the parents could get together. I think maybe reaching out to the community and having people who are interested in maybe having offices. I know there are some businesses that people who work from home and maybe want to do work out of the home and use the space for that kind of thing. Reaching out for that, or reaching out to potential entrepreneurs in the town who just want to rent out some space to get the building rented and busy and productive as much as possible.
Well, actually, your question kind of leads right into my second question. Thanks for the segue.
You're welcome.
We're a small town, and really things that go on in town mainly rely on word of mouth. Even though we have Berlin Neighbors Connect, and we have the town webpage, and we have an 1870 page, you have to take into consideration that many people, perhaps the elderly, don't have access to the internet. So assuming that access, that access is limited, how do you get the word out about all these events?
Well, you could do mailers, you could do flyers, definitely contact the Council on Aging. I mean, the seniors are an amazing resource of knowledge and wisdom and experience. Wouldn't it be great if we could find a way to involve them more in the community, to offer up what they have to offer and appreciate it, and use, find a way, some kind of genre or venue well, the venue is there, but some way to touch base with the Council on Aging, who could reach out to seniors, excuse me, veterans. As you can see by my resume, I'm a veteran, so working with the Veterans Agency in town and reaching out to that group of people. Any clubs. I was speaking to someone who said there's a group of antique Jeep restorers in town, and I'm like, well, is there a club? My husband's an antique Jeep restorer, and I'm like, well, is there a club? So reaching out to different clubs, how people communicate anyway, and then getting the word out, utilizing their means of communication.
All right. And final question from me, Lisa, how would you measure success in this new role?
Well, success would be a number of things. First, the building is creating a even more, I mean, there is a great sense of community in Berlin as it is now, but just expanding on that and really letting people know that building is there, and just increasing the sense of community and togetherness, especially after what's happening. Also increasing the revenue that the building has now. I haven't seen the numbers. I don't know what it's done in the past, but that's something I would certainly analyze to see what it was doing before and taking it to the next level. and then taking that money, obviously it's not up to me what happens to that money, but hopefully it would go towards even more community events and using it for the greater good.
Excellent. All right, do you have any questions of me before I pass you over to the other Lisa?
I don't believe so, not right now. I asked a lot of questions during my initial interview, so I think I'm understanding what this is, what we're doing.
We can give her a chance to ask a few questions at the
At
end.
the end,
if she thinks
okay.
it's- Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, just a second. I had everything all straightened up and now I gotta find my document again.
If you're having trouble, I can go ahead and ask mine.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So my first question is, in the position of the 1870 Town Hall Manager, you'll be interfacing with the public, managing facility rentals, marketing the revenue, using social media to promote the venue. Tell us about your professional background and how it might assist you in this position.
Well, I was a serial entrepreneur. So I've written many business plans for people. I've run 2 gymnastic centers. Started one in Virginia that I started, was mine, and sold. Moving back up here, I had a toy store, and I've had another gymnastics facility, which I just sold. I've run different types of businesses. So I've done everything that is involved with the business as far as managing money and marketing and hiring and cleaning and collaborating and everything that has to do with business, I've done it. So in my businesses that I've had, so all that experience that I have would translate very well to this. So it would be really exciting to be able to use everything I've learned and had over the years in a productive way that would be beneficial. I have no intention of starting another business again, though. So this sounds wonderful to me because it's an outlet to be able to use that experience without having to run a business, so to speak. So everything I've done everything in the job description 100 times over. So
Great. What is your experience with developing and managing budgets?
Well, my first business, I wrote my business plan, and I raised money by sending it out to individuals and completely raised all my capital privately. I've never used a bank to raise capital for a business. I've always just presented business plan. Was that the question again? Sorry, I get lost.
I probably wrote some of these questions before I read your resume, which
Okay.
you have a lot of experience in budgeting if you've had.
Yes. So I've ordered equipment, I've paid employees, I've, managed the money coming in,
I guess
all my financials.
In the municipal world, we have to develop budgets that will be approved at town meeting and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
I guess that might have been more of what I was looking for. And I assume you have that kind of background. Not
Well,
municipal.
I have background managing budgets, just
Yes.
not within a municipality. I mean,
Right.
working, which,
Okay.
appeals to me because it actually takes more, takes pressure off of me as opposed to doing it for my own business. It's, administrated by other people, and it'd be nice to work with other people too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you done any grant writing?
No, I haven't. And they asked me that in the initial interview, and I've never done any grant writing. But from what I understand, it's very similar to writing a business plan. So having raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to start my own businesses through privately through my own business plans, I'm very confident that I could get some grant money done. So,
Okay,
and I look forward to learning how to do it and the challenge of it. Yeah.
okay. My third question is organizational skills is definitely an asset in this position. You'll be scheduling functions, assuring the cleanliness of the building, staying on top of physical issues with the building, preparing capital requests. Tell me about your organizational skills abilities.
Well, in my gymnastics schools, again, organizing, setting aside time to run the business side of the business and setting aside time to do the marketing of the business and doing all of the coaching, and running 200 or 300 kids through my businesses every week. So I'd have to be very organized to get that done. And so I am very organized in that regard. Both of the gymnastic schools sold at a profit, so it was successful. So,
Very
Yeah.
good. Lisa, are you set?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. What do you feel is the mission of the 1870 Town Hall, and how would you implement it?
okay, again, I believe the mission of the 1970 Town Hall, or 1870, sorry, 1870 Town Hall is to just develop more of a cohesiveness in the community and a strength in that community. And I also feel that it is used to make money to reinvest in the community and to bring people together. That's my understanding.
Okay. And how would you implement it?
Again, by creating community events in collaboration with the community center and the church and other areas, other businesses, children's organizations, the Council on Aging, again, what I said, the veterans organizations. And again, I would have to look into what all those are, but definitely just reaching out to people and seeing what kind of excitement you can get to do that, to bring people into the building and nurture that community spirit while making money, again, for the community, reinvesting as a cycle.
The project to update the 1870 Town Hall expended many town resources, both capital and volunteer. Do you have any thoughts on how to balance building use between community functions and paying customers? Did that,
Yeah.
did that make sense to you?
Right.
have
So I guess what I'm hearing is that the building is also used for community events that are
Probably
not paid
should be,
for.
because
Right. So in looking at whatever schedule of community events that are being used in the building, an empty building makes no money. And I learned that with my gymnastics facilities. I have 5,000 square feet. Every minute that it sits empty, it's not making money. So in taking in what it's being used for community events, when it's not being
Well done, Chris, well done.
well, at least it's not the fire alarm. When it's not being used for community events, the goal would be to get it rented, every square foot of it, as much as possible, so that it would be doing its other job, which is making money, so you can have more community events. So that's how I would balance that. And allowing time for the cleaners to come in and do their thing too.
please describe your approach to and experience with customer service and marketing.
Okay. Well, customer service, again, I've had, 200-300 people, parents come in and out of my gym every week. So I've interacted and worked with a lot of people because I was not the boss of my business. Every one of my customers were my employers. So I understand that and worked with each person. Everybody's individual and every approach is different. So I have, I think, a good insight into how to work with different people and interact with different depending on their background and, you know, who they are and what their approach is. Everybody's different. But I've had a lot of experience doing that. I had a toy store as well for a number of years, and that's just all customer interaction, as well as interacting with vendors who I work with, and finance people. So, so I've had a lot of interaction in that regard. Yeah. There was another part to it.
Marketing.
Marketing. Oh, marketing. Oh, I love marketing.
Regards to marketing.
I love marketing because I'm an out of the box thinker for sure. And, you know, it's not, I don't stick to one type of marketing. I'll try the best thing I think is going to work. And if it doesn't work, then we move on to the next thing. The best way to do it is to learn through, in my opinion, is to see what works. And sometimes things I may try may not work. Okay, we move on from that, we learn from it, and then we try the next approach. There's just so many avenues for marketing. Yes, you have social media. Yes, you have mailings. Yes, you have phone calls. Yes, you have different community groups that you can reach out to. And you have video, and you have, there's just so many avenues to marketing. In the gym, I use t-shirts, I did birthday parties. Having the more community event, or having more people in there renting the building, will create buzz for more people if it's done right and it's done well, which of course it will be. So, you know, word of mouth is, as we all know, I mean, I didn't write the book, but word of mouth is absolutely number one. Mm-hmm. And being approachable and working with people, because if it's not a good experience, it's not going to be good word of mouth, and we can't have that.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm sorry, my dog is seeing me in the glass door,
Fun.
sitting in the kitchen. Sorry.
It's okay. Mine is banned to the living room right now.
So is there any other questions that you would like to ask us, Lisa, that you can think of?
Well, for me, I will tell you, I am really excited to move to Berlin. This is a new phase of my life. I've done the business thing. I've raised my children. My husband and I are newly married. We're just very excited to kind of settle down. I've been, you know, working as a substitute part-time to keep busy, but I have been looking. I sold my gym, and I stopped literally a year ago, last week. And I really want something that will utilize what I do well, but I also want to be in another phase of my life where it's a little more relaxed, and I'm just really looking forward to settling into Berlin. And this job just really, really appeals to me. I just think I could do a very good job with it. It meets everything that I have done in my past. They gave me a good understanding. I think I have a very good understanding right now of what's involved. For me, my approach would really, again, be to look at what happened before, reach out to the community, really, you know, get in depth and learn what's happening. That would be that's what I feel would be my first couple of weeks, and then take the ball and run with it. And I'd want to talk to people about what's happening, not just, okay, I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do. I would want to continue to talk to you and everybody that's involved in this, so I really do it right. So it's hard for me to ask questions now, but if I am hired, I will be asking lots of questions about how, you know, in depth, so that I would do it right. Yeah.
Hey. Peg or Lisa?
And when can I start? Oh, no.
Peg, do you have any questions? Are we good?
Oh, I mean, and you saw that often I was like leaning away. You know me, note writer here, note taker.
Mhm.
No, I mean, the big thing really is, Lisa, is how to, you know, balance how folks in the town can use the building and how other folks from outside the town need to use the building, and what type of opportunities there are. You know, you mentioned a few times, you know, after this madness is over, that's probably one of the key events that I would like to see somehow for all the departments to pull something off to kind of like welcome Berlin out of out of their houses and,
Mhm.
coming together back as a community. How and when, that's all up in the air. No one has a magic 8 ball on that one. But, I
Right.
very much liked how, your idea that you need to talk to people, that it's not all about you and what you think. You'll come to learn very quickly, if offered the opportunity, that Berlin, there's many factions that live within town. And,
Right.
one does not speak for all and one is not better than another, but it really is trying to get everybody together to do, what is best and what is right for the town. So
Yes.
I like that you've had, tons of experience working with finance and people and, clients and kids and parents, which can probably be the most difficult. So, well, true statement,
I
but
have stories. Yep. But
we all have
all
stories.
works out in the end. All works
Yes.
out in the end. But
And-
yes, I am. It is well, I'm in Boxborough right now, and that is a small town.
Mhm.
And I see the kind of community in Boxborough, which has been fabulous living here and everything. And and Berlin is even smaller. So I think it actually, because of its size, just creates even more opportunity to have a tighter knit community because you don't have tens of thousands of people. That
Right.
actually is makes it easier, I think, in a lot of ways, And wouldn't it be nice to bring all those different factions together?
Yes, very much so.
But I'd have to learn all those factions first to find the best way. So
No worries.
Lisa, do you have any questions for Lisa?
Oh, just I think Margaret mentioned that you're flexible on start date if you get the offer, because obviously the building isn't open right now and we don't know
Right,
when it
right.
will be open and all of these different things. So
Right.
does it make sense to have you come on the job right away when we don't know?
Absolutely. I know we all have to ride this out and wait. However, if I am offered the position, I would personally be kind of doing my own research ahead of time. And if it's something like I could get information ahead of time, that would be great. So we could get right out of the gate with something. Which obviously I can do from home, but yeah, I can start whenever. But as I said, for me, I think it would be really important to spend, at least 2 weeks just really getting into it and seeing what has happened, so that something could be put that I could present and say, well, this is my ideas and what does everyone think, kind of thing. So coming out of the gate, things could start happening immediately because, as you mentioned, oh, hi, I have highway department up here. When this does pass, and it will, wouldn't it be nice if we had something immediately ready to offer the community, because communities are going to need it. So
Yeah.
Luckily,
anyway.
we'll have a good resource because Leanne, the previous
Right, she did it, right, yeah,
available. So yeah.
right.
Through the chair and Lisa, for your information, Leanne is willing to work with Lisa when Lisa does come aboard eventually. I know we're in kind of a holding pattern at the moment. But Leanne is ready to work with you when the time comes.
Okay, all right, yep.
Um,
Yeah, she did mention that, I think, before too. Yeah.
is everybody okay if I just make a motion to offer Lisa the position
Yes.
pending?
Contingent on the reference check and pre-employment medical.
Yeah, yep.
So Lisa Wysocki, you've made that motion.
I have made that motion.
Okay, Peg?
I'm busy taking notes. Hang on. Yes, I second the motion. Lisa, you'll find out that I'm never far from a notebook and usually have notes and go back and forth. So it may not appear that I'm not paying attention, but I'm diligently taking notes and can pull up time and place that someone said, blah, blah, blah. So, yes.
I'm a serious, I always have a notebook in my car and with me. So I hear you.
All right,
Yeah,
so
the best ideas.
we have a motion on the table and a second. We have to do a
Roll call.
roll call vote. That's what it's called. Keith, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone Eye.
Okay, I'd call that unanimous. Lisa, we are looking forward to welcoming you aboard.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm very excited. Thank you so much. Super excited.
Lisa, if you could shoot me an email tomorrow, we'll start going over some of the details.
Yay. Okay. Thank you very much. And it was fun video zooming or whatever.
And
Stay safe, wash your hands.
Okay.
best of
Thank
luck
you.
to your moving into Berlin.
Thank you. Yeah, soon, I hope. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all
Thank
right.
you so much, and I look forward to talking to you all again.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right. good night.
Congratulations.
I'm gonna-
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I gotta figure out how to shut this down.
Oh,
There's
good.
the leave a meeting down in the corner.
Bottom right, Lisa.
Ah, there it is. Thank you.
Good night, Lisa.
Okay, got it. Have a good evening.
You
Hang in
too.
there.
Hate to interject here, but Barry is after Dave. Dave's ready to go, but Barry is a call-in person who cannot be promoted to a panelist as a call-in person.
Good.
So Barry, I think you know my cell phone number. If you call me, I'll connect you the best I can. I'll send you an email with my cell phone number. Dave's ready for you all.
Okay. All right, we're going to have the Highway Department's monthly report from Dave Smith.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Dave
Dave.
Smith.
Hi, Dave.
It's been quite a while since I've seen you all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still don't see you.
So this is actually the report for February. Hang on for 1 second here. Do you know?
There he
Dave.
is.
There we go.
I got to check the background to see what's in there. I guess.
Oh, perfect. It's the American flag.
Okay. So this is for February. We had a fairly mild winter, fortunately for everybody, especially to the budgets. My biggest problem, once again, is trees. I still keep getting tree complaints. We did remove trees on Old Central Street in February, mid-February. We spent 2 days. That depleted my tree budget. Not that we could probably do anything now with the situation we're faced with. At this point, when I wrote this, which was March 11th, we had 22 snow-related events, whether it be plowing or treating the roads. At the same time, last year, we were at 36 events. So there's quite a difference in the amount of times we had to respond, which is good. Bringing up the salt shed, we have 2 different types of salt. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. We have a regular straight salt and a treated salt. They share space in the salt shed, and it's divided with a series of giant concrete blocks. We were looking to deplete the inventory in the salt shed so we could remove those blocks because they take up space, and it doesn't really matter if the 2 products get mixed a little bit. The only problem with that now is restocking. If we're going to put a freeze on spending, this might present a problem for next budget year, but that's something we can go over at a later date. But we're not by any means going to run out of salt. We probably have enough to carry us through, I'm going to guess maybe December. But I'd like to finish the year with the shed being full. That way we're using this year's money and not already tapping into next year's money, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So the guys have been doing some roadside tree work, brush work, what they can do from the ground. Potholes. Fortunately, the weather's been fairly cooperative. I think we only had 2 pothole complaints this year, which is pretty amazing. The gas line up River Road, we've had absolutely no complaints with the construction going on there, which is very good considering the amount of traffic that road carries. They're almost done. I think maybe 2 more weeks they should be out of there. That's basically all I had for February's report. Is there any questions about that?
Peg,
Dave, you're not sitting next to me, so of course I could ask you a question. And you kind of hit on this earlier. You only have what, 4 guys?
That is correct.
So what are you doing to kind of keep them safe? How are you separating them so one doesn't infect another? Because we really won't have an opportunity for backup if a couple of them go down, God forbid, there's a snowstorm. So what are you doing to keep them together but apart?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to go into that a little bit later, but we can do that now. I've been talking with Margaret a little bit about coming up with some kind of a plan that we can split the crew up, 2 guys on rotating shift. I'm not sure how, I haven't really worked out all the details with that, but I'm thinking 3 days on, extended shift. I don't know what else to do. I share your concern because if something should happen in the building and somebody catches this virus, we're out of luck.
Right.
And if there is a storm emergency, it's not like we can rely on another town for assistance because they'd be doing the same thing we'd be doing. So I'm open to any suggestion, but I think it's time that we really look into splitting the crew up somehow.
Is there any opportunity to do split shifts, to do, and I'm just going to make it up, like 6 to 2, 10 to 6 or something like that? I mean, where it's lighter later, you guys can still stay outside. I guess, Margaret, that's probably a legal question that if, I'm hired for, I don't know what the shifts are, 8 to 4:30, but I'm going to ask you to do 6 to 2:30. Is there anything that we need to be concerned about that?
No, there is not. In fact, management has rights to be able to organize the scheduling in the town's best interest. And in this particular case, it is absolutely in the town's best interest and the employee's best interest to do whatever we can to separate the employees through shift scheduling.
So Dave, is there enough work where you could do that, where you could put 2 guys early, 2 guys late?
I think if we were going to split them up, it would be by days. So I think I would have 2 guys come in for 3 days and 2 guys take the additional 3 days. So for example, I gave it a little bit of thought. I would take Jimmy and Tom and put them on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Fred and Brian Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
So, question, Margaret, Saturday overtime, or is Saturday just considered a shift change?
Saturday would have to be considered a shift in this particular case. Overtime would be charged over 40 hours in the week.
All right. So you could do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 hours, no impact to OT budget. Okay.
So I think that's the best solution if we're going to look into doing this, and I think we should. And it's not etched in stone that those crews have to work together if there's an issue scheduling wise and they need to swap out a day. Pretty flexible like that.
Yeah.
And if you did the 3 on, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but if you did the 3 on, they could be alternating. So one crew's not always going to do a Saturday. And hopefully this
Right.
is going to be a short-term scheduling issue.
That's correct. And I see it just a very short time of doing this, perhaps just a month of April, I'm hoping.
okay.
So you'll work out the details and let Margaret know what you come up with as a plan.
Yes, if that's acceptable with everybody on the board, I think we should look into that and move forward with it. Rather
Did
than
you talk to the guys about
have.
their input?
I haven't, only one has some resistance. The other 3 are all for it.
All right.
So Dave, you're going to work it out with Margaret and then keep us posted?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Did you have another report that you wanted
I
to share?
do. I have a March report if you want to hear that. It's about as boring as February's.
No.
Boring is good. If it's boring, that means
Yeah.
nothing blew up.
That's right.
No,
We
it's,
have
uh,
enough
it is-
excitement everywhere else.
It is good. It's been, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I really hate snow. So a little bit of the old business, we talked about the salt shed and restocking that. I have talked to June and Margaret a little bit about what my intentions were there. So here's what happens to salt suppliers this time of year. They have salt they want to get rid of. So as the time moves on, they start dropping the price a few dollars a ton. So when that happens, I realize we're on a spending freeze, but I think it's important that we take advantage of the price break and try to restock some of the depleted supply, because I get a pretty good feeling that next year the prices are going to go through the roof. So we spend a little bit now, or I'm thinking next year, I wouldn't be surprised if the price doubles.
Given some of the excess buildings that we have, Dave, would any one of them be amenable to you buying salt and dropping it in there so you're not mixing old salt, new salt?
So the salt doesn't really have a shelf life, so I'm not really concerned with that.
No expiration date.
That's correct.
Yeah, but did you say,
We do need, I mean, we need salt regardless. We're gonna have to buy it at some point, right? So
That's
does
correct.
it make sense to go ahead and do it when we're getting the cost savings?
I
Dave,
think-
what's the balance right now? Excuse me, I'm sorry, through the chair.
So with what we have for and payroll, we're around 24,000, I believe, left.
Okay, okay.
So
And I had
I'd
previously.
recommend, I'm sorry, but I'd recommend we spend maybe $6,000 or $8,000, something like that, to restock the salt shed, which isn't going to fill it, but it'll give us well into next season.
And through the chair, I had already given authorization, this is going back to the last time Dave met with you, I had already given authorization for Dave to spend up to $10,000. And then he would have to have requested more, so he hasn't tapped into that yet.
I believe it was more than that, wasn't it?
wasn't that 20?
Oh, was it? Oh, gosh.
I thought it was 20.
Maybe it was 20.
Yeah.
I can look at that.
But even so, I agree. I think that, if you're going to buy it anyway, because snow's not going to go away next year, I think it's better to get a better price.
Right.
And we need to just figure out the best way to do that.
I mean, I think we're gonna still have to spend right now. We just need to look closely at what we are spending on and make sure
Right.
that it's appropriate to do it. There's
Right.
no way around some of these expenses.
Yes. And especially things that you're going to pay for later, and you're going to pay more, most likely later. So, was there anything else in your report, Dave?
Nothing extremely out of the ordinary. We started taking some of the trees down. We've had some time. We're kind of in between season here. So we're taking some of the trees down behind the building at 112 West Street in anticipation that someday we'll get a new salt shed there.
Oh, okay. So that's what you call the West Street Crossing Project?
No,
No.
the West Street Crossing Project is the new subdivision that's going on down by Five Corners.
Oh, okay. Because I was unaware of that. And then Gibbs Road, is that the road by the hotel?
Gibbs Road is the project off of Peach Hill.
Okay, okay,
So both of those projects are moving along quite nicely. The Gibbs Road,
okay.
I think there's two houses that are pretty near complete. I know one is complete, or close to it. And the West Street Crossing project, the road is in, most of the drainage and subdrain has been installed. They're doing a very nice job. And now they're down at the road. They're starting to build the retention pond for the stormwater.
Okay.
Last question for you, Dave, because I always have questions. I know you said in your report you had to lose Aiden, obviously, because the schools are shut. So that money that you were going to pay for him, is it still available, say, if he wants to come back and work part-time for the town in the summer, or after this madness is over?
Yes, that's another subject I needed to bring up, Margaret, as far as we still have money for Aiden. And we also have some money left over from seasonal help from last year. The problem with Aiden is not necessarily if we have money to pay him, he's going to max out his hours.
Wow. All right.
Even though we have this hiatus, huh?
Well, for now, I did the math and it put him, I think, somewhere towards October. So now he's probably into November.
Okay.
But
That's something we'll
that's-
have to check on. And the max hours, that's going to be applicable to offering health insurance and benefits and things like that. So we'll have to get answers to that.
Yeah, well, I hope you can find a way. I know he was an asset, or is an asset.
Yeah, he's a good kid, and we were just, the state had offered to give us an additional $2,000 if we were able to get him a CDL license, and he actually made an appointment to go, and with everything that came up, that it got put off. So he was pretty excited about that, and then everything came to a screeching halt.
Yeah,
It'll come back around.
No doubt.
yep. All right, well, thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Did Peg or Lisa have any questions for Dave? I think we asked a few already. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
We're going to move on to our discussion with the moderator, Barry Ager.
I'm here. Am I heard?
You're
Yes.
Yay.
Okay.
Yay. So we wanted to talk to you about the timetable and the possible postponement of the 2020 annual town meeting. I understand you've discussed some of this with Margaret.
Yep. Well, I mean, you can do what you want to with it. You set the thing as you see fit. I think it's important. From my point of view, we would like to do this with as little controversial material as possible on the meeting, and that will facilitate the possibility that many people will stay home and watch it on TV instead of coming to the meeting. They won't feel that they need to come, and that means we can keep the numbers low. We can spread the seats out. We can, hopefully make it work out so that we can have a legal meeting, but not have an awful lot of people there, which will avoid some of the problems we have under the current situation. Other things that are more substantive or that are likely to be more controversial can be taken up at a special town meeting when we get to the point where things are cleared out enough so we can have a normal meeting.
Yeah.
But
I
that
know.
may be some time from now.
Yes.
The big thing is to get a budget adopted and the basic appropriations that we can't put off, and get those things accomplished so that we'll have a budget for July 1st, if at all possible.
Yeah. So we've been working on the warrant, and I know Margaret will make some recommendations to us shortly on the things that she's going to suggest that we put off until a fall special town meeting. How is the annual town report progress coming?
Well, that's a good question. We have a lot of it in hand. I'm not sure how ready it is right now. I've talked to Lori a week or so ago, and but we've got a few things that I need to still iron out and find, and then we could be close to it. But I still don't. I was going to contact the printer to see whether they're even working.
Yeah.
So that's another factor that comes into the whole thing, and may or may not be that we can even get it printed.
Well, maybe those are some things that you could work out with Margaret.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We'll keep working on those things and moving toward it. I mean, our goal is still to do something similar to what we usually do, but the reality of this whole thing is some things just won't be the way we usually do them.
That's right. And we'll just have to deal with it.
Yeah, Chris,
Yep.
I don't know if you're taking comments at the time, but I'm sorry. I totally disagree with Mr. Ager. All respect to you, Barry. I am not setting foot in that school on May 4th. They don't expect, from Governor Baker and Marty Walsh today, they don't expect the peak to hit for 3 more weeks. So you're already down towards the middle of April.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying you can't put it off.
I
I
don't
know.
think that was what he was saying, Peg. I think even when we have it, if we were to have it in June, I think you'd still want to minimize the number of people in there because it's going to take months and months to actually get this completely under control. So
Great.
Exactly.
I think his
Exactly.
suggestion to keep things not controversial was a really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's how I was feeling too. I don't know whether the board this evening wants to take a stab at a date or whether, Margaret?
I'm just, I,
We should wait.
all the way through yesterday, I was thinking June 1 because the statute allows the board, the statute, chapter 39, section 9 allows the board to delay the town meeting for 30 days as long as the town meeting concludes by June 30th. Today, given everything that happened, that's happened overnight and the continuing issues, I think that, and I know we have one member of the finance committee listening in tonight, but I think the finance committee, and I know the administrative finance team would just like some assurance to know that there will be a delay no sooner than June 1st. So as far as setting a concrete date, I had recommended June 1st, but at this point, if we know that we're not going to go to a date before June 1st, I know that would give me some peace of mind. And I do believe that it would give the finance committee a little bit of flexibility and time to understand the numbers coming from the state.
Is there any issue with choosing June 1st or June 2nd or whatever tonight?
No, there isn't an issue with choosing a date tonight. You could choose June 1st. You could choose to June 3rd because you can delay it for 30 days.
Right.
But my question today, and I'm just at this point, I'm kind of second guessing myself all the way through. Do we do it for the beginning of June? Do we wait for the emergency legislation to come out? There's not an issue with setting the date of June 1st, but it just needs to be understood that the situation might not be resolved by June 1st, and then we have to.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
suspect that even they're going to ask us to push out our town meetings further.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
would
right,
rather not set a date and have to change it than set one and have to change it again. It would be nice if when we give people a date, it could be the
I don't
date.
know that we could do that though.
Well, but we don't have to do anything tonight. We could wait a week or two and see where we are then. We don't have to do this now.
I've updated the board's town meeting calendar. You do have a couple of meetings before you'd want to, or you'd have to make a decision on a firm date. So you do have a little bit of time. Maybe we'll hear about the emergency legislation in this coming week for more guidance. But
I don't think that
Chris?
really is going to matter too much because I still think there's going to be the issue where the people shouldn't be getting together, even if we know about the legislation or we don't.
All right.
But anyway,
Might I speak to that?
sure.
I printed out a copy of the legislation as it came out of the House of Representatives on Friday. And they had approved it, and so when it was supposed to go to the Senate today, I don't know what happened there. But that legislation, there is already in place an emergency declaration, which the moderator can do, and this was done for snowstorms and hurricanes and things like that, so that the moderator, if there's a local emergency, and a national emergency is a local emergency for everybody, the moderator can take the date that you've set the meeting for and can postpone it for up to 30 days in consultation with other town officials. And then the emergency, that is already in effect in a law now, but the emergency legislation permits that to be done again and again if necessary.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we can set the thing, we can set the warrant, we can set a date, and the beginning of June is the time that you can do it legally right now. That's fine. And then if we come up on that time and we need to, I do a declaration and we postpone it to whatever date that we think we can do it at that time. But
Is there a limit of the number of days that you can postpone it?
Yes, that's also 30 days in each case.
So Chris, Janet's been waiting patiently to ask a question.
Okay.
I
Janet,
can either, Janet, are you off mute? Because I can read. Yeah, you're off mute. Go ahead. Janet. Well, while Janet's trying to take herself off mute, Peter Hoffman had a question too. Chris, I don't know if you want to entertain his as well.
well, should we finish the discussion and then ask for questions? I think it would be better if we did that.
All right.
Yeah. How about we just, next week we can decide on a firm date based on
So-
what happens this week.
I'm unmuted now. Can I speak or no?
Hang on one second, Janet. Peg, what do you think about waiting till next week?
Let me pull up the calendar. Hang on. So next week would be
Oh, no, pick,
April
just,
6th. April 6th. So that's a month out.
Yes.
I would say that we can wait a week. That's fine. But within that week, we need to have some type of communication to the town and let them know that there are discussions to push it out. We don't have a definitive date yet. To go back to Lisa's point, we don't want to say, oh, it's June 1st. Oh, just kidding, it's June 18th. Oh, it's July 25th. But I think you need to let the town know, and I'm hoping that the town would be smart enough to realize that we're doing this on their behalf and our behalf as well, that it's truly a safety issue. We're not pushing it because, well, we don't have anything to do. We're pushing it because we don't want any type of pandemic spreading around Berlin, and I would be truly concerned about the amount of people that would not attend because of it.
yeah. All right. I will agree with you, Lisa, and Peg too, and we'll put it on next week's agenda. But I think we're all in agreement, are we not, that we do need to push the town meeting out?
Absolutely, and we can certainly advertise that it will not be on May 4th or
Or
That's fantastic. That's important, I think, for
Okay.
FinCom and residents.
All right.
Janet. Janet.
All right, I'm unmuted now. Unfortunately, when you put it on the webinar situation, the host has to unmute the people that are in the webinar, so I couldn't talk until I got unmuted.
Yep.
So here's my concern. I like the fact that you all decided while we were figuring out the logistics of this technology to wait, because I really feel that we are not going to be together on June 1st with the intel that I got today. And they're talking 8 weeks from peak is when they'll start allowing larger groups together. So I just don't see that June 1st is really even reasonable. My
No.
concern is printing
agree.
and sending everything to print. And I know how much Lisa loves print. We're going to be reprinting, and that's going to be more costs to the town after you set that. So maybe just waiting another week might give us more information. I'm looking at really not getting a whole lot of change on that May 4th date until the week, either the Friday before or the Friday of vacation week is kind of what we were told. So,
Right.
so I like waiting a week.
Yeah, oh yeah. I do have the feeling we may be pushing it out, 2 months, who knows, maybe more.
Just so the board knows, there is an ever-growing spreadsheet that's on the Mass Managers forum, and every day towns are adding information as to what they've postponed their town meetings to, their town elections to, and things like that.
Yeah.
Definitely
think-
not alone.
Well,
Yeah, I think we can also utilize Code Red. I mean, Margaret, since you did our awesome PSA, we may have to tap you again. So that if we do decide, or at least get a message out to the town, to everyone's phone to say, for a safety issue, we will be postponing town meeting. No, we don't have a date yet, but hang tight. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could do that.
Barry, did you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I do also want to add one other thing, and that is that when we have the warrant for the town meeting, the annual town meeting, I think that this time we want to make sure that we print all of the motions rather than just some of them. We need to prepare them and put them in as part of the original production. And part of that, again, is so that people can see what the motions are, and hopefully it will make many of them feel that they don't have to come, and therefore we can keep the numbers of people actually at the meeting down. I'm not in any way trying to keep the public out of the process, but it's just that I'm worried about, when the time comes to hold a meeting and we want to hold a meeting, it may still be hard to hold a meeting with 200 people.
Yeah.
And we might be able to hold a meeting with 50 people spread all over the room, or 75 people spread all over that room.
So Barry, do you have any objection to joining us again in maybe a week or two? And
No, not at all. Not at all.
okay. I mean, we'll probably have this on the agenda at our next meeting. Perhaps we could even get an update on how the annual town report's going, whether it's next week or the week after.
Yeah.
Okay. And I understand Peter Hoffman has a question. Does he still?
I can hopefully convey his question because he also typed it. Peter was asking about virtual attendance at town meeting. Unfortunately, state law does not provide for that, largely because attendance is required at town meeting, and because town meeting does not allow for proxy votes. So given everything else that's happened in the next couple of weeks, we'll have to see if the state makes provisions for that too. But as of now, not yet.
Okay, does that answer your question, Peter?
It does. I have an additional related question. Are other towns holding their meeting virtually in some fashion that accommodates what you've just said, Margaret?
No.
No.
To my knowledge, no, not one.
You can't. It's not legal.
I got the memo from Margaret a second ago. So it's just going to be very painful to have multiple delays and even one delay.
It is.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
tough.
Maybe they'll come up with some new legislation. We have no idea what that will
The
be.
management of a town meeting as a virtual thing with people participating is pretty impossible.
Yeah.
And if all you gotta do is have the slightest glitch, and then the whole thing's thrown into question.
Right.
Much better to have a well-planned meeting that people know in advance all of what's planned to do and exactly how it's planned to do them. And then many people won't feel they have to come. They can watch it on television. We can have a provision for them to call in with questions to have answered before the meeting. And then we do the business of the town meeting as basic as possible, and do it with less people actually present in the hall.
But they cannot vote virtually.
No.
Hey, so Margaret, question for you, and Barry, maybe you know the answer too. How does this impact elections, since town elections are a week after town meeting? Does that push as well?
Barry and I had a brief conversation about this today. Barry, you wanna take that?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Eloise about it a bit. She has the view that we might be able to hold a town election with perhaps shorter hours than usual. But again, really work on getting people to vote absentee and not even come in there to vote, so that we reduce greatly the number of people that have to be there working, as well as the amount of personal interaction involved. It could be almost all done on paper. And then, I mean, she feels that we could do something like that, but we also have to watch what the state does, because other towns have the same problem, and some of them could not make the kind of modifications that we can in order to make it work. So
Okay.
we also will be watching in the next couple of weeks to see what comes out from the state about elections.
Okay.
So with
Alrighty.
regard to the warrant itself, where the last article is usually to set the date of the annual town meeting, the election would have to be posted as a separate warrant if it is held before town meeting. So that's something that
Yeah.
we'd have to get done before an election, if the election is still to be held on May 11th.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if there's been any recommendations as far as pushing out elections or not.
Provisions are certainly being made. Our town council just put out a whole thing on it today. They had a conference call with clerks across the state. I obviously didn't attend, so I can't tell you exactly what the latest is, but there is legislation already passed to allow towns to delay their annual elections.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you, Barry.
You're welcome.
We'll be in touch again, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, we can all labor along until we find out our answers.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Right.
Barry.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Barry.
Bye-bye.
I guess if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the town administrator report.
Okay. I'm going to try to focus on, normal everyday, well, not now normal every day, but
Yeah.
routine business in my TA report. We'll start with the HR compensation and classification study. So the consultant met in interviews with most employees last week. And then I met remotely with the consultant on Friday to review where they're at with the interview process and to discuss next steps. I'm going to be scheduling an initial meeting between the consultant and the personnel committee in April to discuss all the next steps in this project. And then a future meeting is going to be scheduled between the consultant and the board and personnel committee to discuss recommendations on the classification and compensation plan and the draft personnel policies and procedures. I gave the board tonight a spreadsheet showing comp towns and general fund spending in different budget areas, so you could look. The consultant intends to use this group of towns based on being in the common region and all the towns dealing with similar type development issues and percent population growth and things like that. So please look those over, and if you have any concerns on any of the towns, let me know so I can pass that along to the consultant.
Okay.
In the finance committee's level funded budget scenario, there's a column that has been added to the expense budget worksheet. The 1.5% COLAs for non-union, non-contract employees has been removed. So this is just a heads up that when you see that column, that's what you're going to see. But we've tried to stress that we have to proceed prudently, where the finance committee is doing a great job trying to make recommendations and decisions based on almost zero information at this point. So as we start gleaning more information from the state, hopefully it's going to make the finance committee's job that much easier. But that said, it's always good practice to prepare. Next. With regard to COVID-19, the account, June, the accountant has already established a folder into which invoices for public health emergency related expenditures are being put, because now we do know that federal funding will be coming. We can't and shouldn't expect federal reimbursements for this for the next several months, if not years, because it just doesn't work. It tends not to work that quickly. The pre-town meeting and budget forum that we had originally planned for Thursday, April 16th is going to be postponed to a date to be determined. We'll have to figure that out, and it could very well end up being a virtual community workshop, webinar type thing. And finally, one of the marijuana proponents, the one who had scheduled the community outreach meeting and then had to postpone, has reached out again and is interested in seeing how he can proceed given the current situation. So I'm going to have a conversation with him tomorrow to get his thoughts and see if he's really interested in proceeding here.
I understand that that is not one of the establishments that can be open at this time, though, correct?
The retail, no, it can't.
Retail, no. Medical,
No.
yes.
No, it can't. And this is because this is at the very, very beginning of his process. I think he'd like to move at least the licensing process along to be able to be ready to open at some point in the future. So we'll see what he says.
All right. Was there, Peg? I saw a real hand. Sorry.
Look, it's the real hand.
Okay.
Margaret.
Yeah.
As we start to get into, the hot zone here,
Yeah.
and even though most people are working from home, what if you have those, let's pick on Dave just because he's not here. What if one of his guys absolutely says, no, I don't care if you wipe the building down, I'm not coming in, we're in the middle of the hot zone. What do you do if someone says, I just don't want to come to work because
I'm
I don't want to
fearful.
come to work?
Well,
And I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm just saying.
It's a great question. I'll try to keep it short and simple. There are a couple of different steps we could take. We could give the employee, if the employee is very concerned, and Dave can manage it with his staffing, maybe he could do he could use a little bit of accrued time if he's uncomfortable at any given point in time. If he is digging his heels in and not complying with the staffing schedule that needs to be implemented during this emergency, I can tell you one of the first calls I'd make is to Labor Council. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's say it's not Dave. Let's say it's June.
be
Because
anyone.
I'd love to adore her. Anyone, pick anyone, that comes into contact with the public. And they're just nervous about coming in. What do we, how do you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are those departments and employees that are considered, and I don't want to call work at home employees non-essential, but the state's definition of essential departments or essential services includes certain departments. That is the highway departments and DPWs, police, fire, EMS. And locally, when you did your work at home policy, when you adopted that, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, we included town administrator, treasurer collector, and accountant because the town's finance functions also need to continue. And so those employees need to report to work. If someone is an essential, a member of an essential department and they don't want to come in, there is no provision to make accommodations for that employee. So they either need to use short amounts of leave in agreement, in consultation and approval of the department head, or we have to do something else. We have to.
All right.
Yeah.
I figured you were looking into it, but I just didn't know.
Yeah, I don't. Now is not the time.
You would handle it on a case-by-case basis regardless, depending on what the situation was. I don't think you can.
Yeah, I can't really paint it all with the same brush, but at the same time, now is not the time. And I have made this clear, and I've seen things that are going on in other communities. Now is not the time for employees. I get the genuine concern, but now is not the time for employees to be selfish, to make excuses. We all need to step up during this. We've been stepping up during this, and we are here in the spirit and for the purpose of public service. That's why we're here. That's why every employee works for the town. Now's the time we need to step up. And I don't, I know we've got a lot of people attending, but I don't have a high threshold, especially in times of emergency for excuses and frankly, whining. So, yeah. Thank you for letting me say my piece.
Thanks, Mags.
Okay. Are we all set with the town administrator report?
Yeah,
No more questions?
that put the icing on the cake. That was it.
Okay. We're going to move on to old business. The COVID-19 updates, emergency declaration, and work from home status. There we go. Segue.
Okay, all right, so I am going to, I'm not going to do an entire chronology because the information has been flowing so fast and furious. As everyone knows, the governor declared the health emergency on March 10th. Shortly after that, the open meeting law modifications were implemented. And then right after that, or it was during that, the elementary and secondary schools operations were suspended until April 6th. I know that I've talked a lot in the past few meetings about the Medical Reserve Corps, the Central Mass Regional Medical Reserve Corps. They also took action on that, in that they actually waived the requirement for notarized query acknowledgement forms for people willing to step up and serve on the MRC. By the way, I have done that, so I'm ready to help where needed. And then we have a couple of important federal acts have been implemented first, and in kind of relevant to what we just discussed about employees and leave, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act was adopted, which allows part-time and full-time employees, including in the public sector, to potentially qualify for leave based on a COVID-19 related issue. So it could be, and it's associated with the Family Medical Leave Act. So it could be an issue where someone has young children, their children don't have care providers right now during this emergency. The parents need to go to work. This would allow the parent to be able to take some paid leave. It would be limited, but some paid leave to be able to do that. There's also another provision where if the employees themselves have COVID-19 or need to be quarantined, there are provisions for paying employees for that. These are federal requirements. So even for our non-benefited employees, say for example, very part-time employees, maybe that work at the library or elsewhere, they could potentially qualify. Just today, I prepared request forms for both of those instances, and I sent them out along with a poster that department heads are required to provide to their employees, so the employees can be informed about those provisions. And the other act that came out of the federal government is the CARES Act. It is short for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. This is the one where we are going to be seeing federal reimbursements for our operations. This is the one that's going to provide dramatic increases in unemployment benefits. This is the one that's going to provide the immediate direct cash payments to American taxpayers who qualify based on income. This also provides hundreds of millions of dollars in small business relief through loans and loan deferrals. It also provides, it's going to provide $750 million to local, state, and tribal entities to help with response to the public health emergency. And finally, it provides $400 million for election assistance grants for states to help their municipalities in postponing or having to revise their procedures for elections. So an awful lot has gone on. And if anybody's interested who's watching, you probably already know that the state income tax filing deadline has been extended to July 15th, as has the federal income tax filing deadline. And residents should go to mass.gov/COVID-19 for the latest news, counts, and information on orders and other guidance being released. That's it. It's a
Okay.
lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. If there's no questions from Lisa or Peg, we'll move on.
There was at least one question here. There's, would ballots be mailed or would folks have to request them? I would assume that they would have to request them as an absentee ballot.
I would assume so, but they should contact the town clerk for that information.
And then Scott Hawkins also had, I'm willing but don't need to share what my office is doing for our group homes, maybe at the end.
Okay. All right. You'd like us to vote to include articles for the 2020 annual town meeting?
I think what I'd like to do tonight is walk you through what I've gone through on the town meeting warrant regarding articles I might recommend including and those that I would recommend deferring to a special. I don't know, do you want me to go through the whole thing or you've got the,
I don't know. What do you, Peg, what do you think, Lisa?
Margaret, it's the one dated March 30th, right? So it's out there, we can just look at it.
yes, and also the draft town meeting warrant includes comments showing which ones I would recommend including and which ones I recommend deferring.
Yeah. I did go through it this afternoon.
Okay. I'm on the same page with Barry as far as trying to stick to the most urgent business at the annual and seeing if we can bundle bylaws and things like that later.
I think I completely agreed with what you had, the reasoning behind it. Lisa, Peg? As far as the which ones were most important and needed to be covered at an annual town meeting and which could be a special, the warrant articles.
I think the only question that I had was, I think the planning, the master plan one was one that you had suggested excluding
Deferring.
or deferring.
Deferring.
I would just want to make sure that planning is okay with that and that they don't need to start their work at a particular time or that sort of thing. As long as they're on board, I have no issues with.
I do still have to check with all proponents of all articles to make sure they're on board. They're on board with this.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know I didn't have any issues myself. Peg, how about you?
No, I'm good. I'm, as always, Margaret is pretty straightforward and spot on and easy to read. So, you know, if there was a question, I'd find it. I'm good.
Okay.
Give Peg a minute. Peg, we'll give you a minute.
No, because I looked at it earlier. Go
Let's
ahead.
move on. Let's move on.
That's funny, Chris. Yeah, shut me down. Go ahead. All right.
So would you like a vote to support the articles that you were thinking of for an annual town meeting and a vote or to cover both the special town meeting and the other? Or do you want to wait?
If you'd like, I could probably put this into a more succinct format for your meeting next week. And I could just do it in outline format rather than have you go through the entire town meeting warrant. So if you'd like to wait till next week when you're doing other town meeting things, we could do that. So
Okay.
whatever the board wants to do.
Is that all right with you too?
Yep.
Okay. We'll do that. And would you like to go over or review the 2020 annual town meeting action calendar?
This is very brief. All I've done is I've just extended the deadlines from this point on in the event that the town meeting was to be scheduled for June 1st. So whatever date is decided next week, we'll build the calendar accordingly.
Okay. All right. Questions?
Nope.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the FY20 budget update.
All right, so First, FY20. This is FY20. Okay. Because it's become quite evident that there are going to be some revenue impacts in the fourth quarter this year, I have issued a spending freeze administrative directive to departments that outlines what would be considered essential spending to keep the town's operations going, and anything that's not on that list, I have advised departments to check with us first. What we don't want to have to do is find ourselves in a position of having to return things after they've been ordered because they're not considered essential. That's the reason for this spending freeze, is because we know there are going to be revenue impacts and we don't want to find ourselves in a revenue shortfall. So I've issued that for FY20. Interestingly enough, we just received our meals and rooms tax revenues this year for the prior quarter. And they came in pretty well. I think they totaled close to $50,000. We're not going to see anything near that in the fourth quarter. Nothing near that in the fourth quarter. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We don't know what other effects there'll be. We do know that the actual tax bills are being mailed out. We don't know what the rate of collections will be. So there are too many questions right now to kind of allow the business as usual. Not that I'm saying that departments loosely spend. I think they're responsible. However, we need to tighten it up even more now. So that's where we're at with FY20 at the moment.
Okay.
Still in
And
good shape.
That's good. Questions for Margaret on FY20? FY20? Okay, Peg?
So Margaret, I know you and I had talked about this earlier, and given some of the recent events in Berlin where there's been a call for ALS services, and unfortunately we've had to use another town that, borders us that increased their costs rather high.
Yes.
And I know that maybe we can't do it this year, and given that we have a paramedic on staff, what is the thought process? Can we start to put in there, and this may be a more Chief Clark question, of getting together a chaser car to put that in there, because then that would drastically reduce our cost for having to pay out other towns for their ALF services, where if you already have somebody on staff and who is a paramedic, you put them in the car and go.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree, and I know that Chief Clark, at his last monthly meeting with the board, he discussed this a little bit. He and I had attended a meeting in Hudson with officials from Hudson and Bolton found themselves having to do that very quickly because their ALS provider backed out with whatever it was, 48 hours notice. I think that Chief would absolutely like to work on that. I don't think it's realistic to think that it could happen in 6 months like Bolton's trying to do. That said, the town of Sterling operates an ALS level service. They are charging, I want to say 200. I don't, I can't quote it. Far less than Northborough is charging now. So we're looking at doing an agreement with Sterling to have them help us out whenever possible, just to kind of have that ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
But yeah, I would suggest talking to Chief Clark. Continue that discussion.
Yeah, because it just seems like we're tossing away money, and then your return on investments will get there, and especially as the apartments start to come up in town and there may be additional buildings in town, you can't afford the $1,400 a call to Northborough every time we need ALS. That's just, 20 calls and we have a truck. So, there you go. All right, I'll reserve all my questions on the budget because there's no point, because we really don't know yet. So I'll let them go.
Okay, Lisa, anything?
Nope.
All right. Would you like to go over the FY21 budget for us, Margaret?
The Finance Committee met on Saturday morning virtually. I tagged along and met with them. I had done work on the expense budget column labeled level fund at FY20 or reduce. And Mary Porter of the Finance Committee had actually run a few revenue scenarios showing 10%, 20%, and 30% decreases. Again, it's very early. It was a really productive meeting, I thought. Great discussion, but I think everyone understands it's very early, and we are just coming up, the Finance Committee is just coming up with scenarios to prepare for the time that we have more information. Let's see. At the end of that spreadsheet, I thought it was important to note that in this revenue, or in this reduction column, I have reduced most of the municipal department budget lines, or level funded them. And however, under budget section 800, intergovernmental expenditures, there are some very, very large assessments that we might not necessarily be able to change. And so at the bottom of that spreadsheet, the budget request, the original FY21 budget request column totaled $14,455,000, and the reduced budget totaled $14,042,401. And that, the only thing that I had taken out of that scenario was the Berlin Memorial School capital assessment, because I have requested that the school consider allowing us to defer that. It's $120,000. And so and there's no debt service in there. So I thought it was worth asking them if they would consider that. So anyway, the new reduced total would be $14,042,000. If you take out, or if you total all those columns minus the education assessment increases, it comes to $13,750,000. So the reductions on the municipal budgets in that scenario reduce the budget outside of the school assessments, reduce the budget to less than what it was in FY20 in the current year. So it just shows how heavy the increases in those assessments are and how much they affect our bottom line budget. So I just wanted to kind of show that. Finance Committee actually voted on Saturday morning to ask me to contact both of the school districts and ask if they might consider going back to talk about their budgets, given the health emergency. So I'll contact Bob and Ernie and see if they would consider that down the road when they have a little more information.
Okay, that sounds good. Questions?
Nope.
All right, would you like to move on, Margaret?
Sure, where are we at?
We're at the new
Hopefully.
Flat Penny LLC discussion regarding status of non-liquor licenses.
So the recommendation I prepared, if the board does want to do anything with this at this time, my recommendation was that the board notify Greg Sanborn as the sole principal of the new Flat Penny LLC and their attorney James Mears, that the board expects to receive a written request to amend the corporate owners, partners, members that will appear on local licenses going forward. I also recommended in this memo that the board's notice requests the LLC certification that they have current and valid workers' comp coverage. Brian Riley, town council, said, currently it's maybe a bit of a moot point. The business is closed fully, if not mostly closed and only doing takeout. I don't think they're doing anything. They have filed an appeal with the ABCC, which prevents any action on the common victualer's license locally. So there's no action that we could take on that, or the board could take on that at this time. So I'll leave it to the board, and if the board so directs, we could send a notice to them to inform them that they need to update ownership information on local licenses.
Well, my only concern is that if they were to open tomorrow just for takeout, would they be legal?
They are legal because it's in the corporate name, even though a former corporate representative signed the application, the license itself is in the corporation's name, which hasn't changed.
Okay. Was there any other questions?
I personally, I think it needs to fall out with ABCC. I think we have enough going on with COVID-19 and everything else that we have to focus on that, again, this to me, any type of reach out to them to tell them what they need to do. I mean, Margaret, they're smart people. They should know what to do. They've known what to do and they haven't done what they need to do. So I don't think we should do anything.
Lisa?
I think we need to leave it for now. We have far bigger things to worry about.
Okay. All right, that's it then. I guess we will move on to new business, which, do we have anything? There's nothing on the agenda.
No, but I forgot something under old business. I'm sorry, and it's related to COVID-19.
Okay,
The board adopted the work from home guidelines. Those were effective through April 3rd, and I am asking the board tonight to vote to extend that for 2 weeks through April 20th, at which time you could reassess.
okay.
Should we
Please,
just
wait a minute, 20th, hold on.
Should we just do as long as deemed necessary? Rather than continually updating this? I mean, I think you're gonna know and be able to inform us when it's okay for people to come back in. I don't think we need to piecemeal bring this week by week by week.
I don't have a problem with that.
Peg?
Other board members?
Hmm?
Okay.
No, I think we should, as Lisa said, just let it ride. I mean, we're governed by what the state does. And if they're closing schools and everything down until May, and I can share that our COO at my new company sent a letter out and said, he didn't expect the facility to be back open much to July. So we're all at home for then.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm sure we'll be hearing from you otherwise, Margaret, but you.
So it'll be until further notice.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need a vote on that?
Yes, I would like a vote on that, please.
Motion to extend the guidelines until deemed unnecessary or
And
Okay.
seconded.
Okay. Keith, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone eye.
Okay. All right. I believe we're down to board questions and comments. Nothing.
Nothing.
I
I'm
think we
giving
asked
you a
enough
week.
questions already.
That's right. I'm giving you a week off. Be prepared next week. I got nothing.
And looks like, I think we're good with,
Oh, Janet has a hand back up. I don't know if it's an old hand or a new hand, but I see her hand up.
well, and there was, did
And
Scott
Scott
have,
has something to share also.
so what, Janet, can you hold on? We'll ask Scott if he has a comment. Mary, can you unmute Scott? Can I do that?
I can't. Mary thinks that I can. I can record, but I can't mute and unmute.
There it comes.
Hi.
There he is.
Hi.
I just, when you were talking about sick policy, that I was willing to share, although again, I don't have a need to share, but that my agency is telling folks that if you don't want to work your shifts because you're feeling uncomfortable because you're in a high risk group, that you actually need to go and get a doctor's note. Otherwise you burn vacation time.
Okay.
We're being fairly strict about it as well.
Yeah, that's important right now. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thank you, Scott. Janet, is your hand still up?
I think she left. Oh. Oh, there she is, but she's muted.
Is.
Oh,
I
she's
just-
unmuted.
I just wanted on record that Peg didn't have a question.
All right, you got it. Got that, Mary? All right, with no questions, I would ask, I guess, for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
Okay. Keith, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone Eye.
All right.
Everybody, please
Everybody.
stay safe and healthy.